Okay, well, today we are going to start with FY26 Period S Reporting Checklist All. And we're going to do this in sections. We talked about that before, how, there's 101 pages to this. If you printed out if you printed a couple weeks ago, there's only one change and it shortened it by one page. If you have 102 pages, it's almost all identical until we get like to the end almost. So anyway, table of contents, we're going to go right through to the introduction, which is page 4. This is just collection request and gives you the information on the first window, the second window, and the final window, which really do make a difference when you're submitting things or when you're getting errors that you've got something in there that you didn't have to submit. You can usually just ignore those and wait till the window opens that you actually are ready to submit that data. On page 6, we start with our ad hoc reports. They have really expanded the ad hocs and they offer a lot more reports in there. It's all in, a lot of it's in the analytics hub under EMIS. And so if you're ever wanting to see some of those are like, I never used them near enough, but when you go under EMIS, you can see all the different reports in here. I mean, the EMIS admission calendar comparison, all of those things are in here. Sub calendars, hours, attendance hour summary. So there's a lot of things that you could actually go through. And I think at some point, just going in there and looking at those ad hoc reports and analytics hub and see what's available is truly amazing. And it goes down through some of them: SSID search, missing fields, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, the 5 credit rule when you're talking about sports. So those are just some heads up that if you think about going in there and looking around, you might find some things that would be great to have, or great even to reference, your secretaries or someone else in the district. On page 8, I have to remember that I have to do more than just talk. So I got to get to page 8. Sorry about that. On page 8, you have your reminders, your wipe and new from period L. I believe probably everybody has done that by now. If there is anybody not done that. And this reminders, these go through just to tell you, like service only students, those kind of things, autism scholarship, John Peterson scholarships, college plus students. So a lot of good things. I'm going to tell you on page 9, it goes through at the very bottom. It says the gender identity and preferred pronouns. That still shows up in civil rights. They talked about whether they're going to keep that in civil rights or not, but if your district tracks those, then civil rights is going to ask for those, so you know. On page 10, the FD and FN tab student profile. And again, it just goes through, what's on the FD tab that's important to report. So your migrant status, disability conditions, and so forth, your FN tab, accountability IRNs, attending IRN next year, and of course your grad tab, FN. So it just goes through it. Now we're going to get into the meat of what we do. So student records update. We're going to talk a little bit about this. If you guys hit the very first task 1, verify student admission and withdrawals. And I believe there is a training coming up on registration and withdrawals. Am I correct, Shelley? That's next week? And, I always say going to the training, if you learn one thing, it's been worth the time that you spent there. And a lot of times we have questions about registrations and withdrawals, and that's great training. Just a little plug there, sorry. So anyway, verify students' admission and withdrawals. If you look at the remember little yellow tab on the side there, it is no longer appropriate to expunge no-shows unless they're reported on the FS record. I think a lot of times, we use that expunge mainly at the end of the school year when you're withdrawing students and they're in the next school year, but you have a withdrawal date in 25-26. and you've already done your initialization, so they're showing up in 26, 27. That's when, before you've started that 26, 27, when you can expunge students. You know, the old word was to whack them, which is not a very appropriate word. But that's the time that you can actually do that, and it makes sense. Other than that, I think a lot of people started expunging students, and what they found was a lot of missing students when you're submitting when you're submitting your data. And I don't think there's probably anybody in this room that had 0 missing students. There's always those few kids that either don't come over or, you know, were expunged by a secretary in the district because they thought, oh, school hasn't started, I'll just expunge that student. But they didn't have a withdrawal date in the previous school year. If you have a student and they're enrolled, they have to be moved forward unless they have a withdrawal date. Very important to remember that. Okay. Is there any questions on that? That seems to have been one of the biggest issues this year for me at the beginning of the year. There is a note. I don't think, do we have any community schools?
Not
Okay.
online.
Okay, so I'm going to skip over the community schools. So again, it says verify the following steps, types of students are withdrawn in 25, 26. No shows, they didn't show up. You still got to have a reason that you're withdrawing them. Okay. So anyway, I just kind of want to bring that up. Summer withdrawals, summer graduates, all of those. As we move on to page 12, process students who were supposed to graduate last year but did not. Again, it goes through the process of what you need to do. Did they drop out? Are they returning just to be tested? Do they still need a couple credits? Did they come back at all? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself. And if you previously withdrew them as a dropout, did they come back? And you need to re-enter them and get that information in there. So those are just some reminders. Task 2 on page 13, reporting preschool students. There is a change this year, and the ECE grant is removing the requirement of having the preschool poverty level. So, when you used to get those errors because you didn't put that poverty level in there, they're not doing that anymore because they're qualifying those students differently now. Instead of the district qualifying them, you have Job and Family Services qualifying them. And I don't know how many people in here have the ECE grant, but I know there's at least 3 or 4 that have that for sure. So that's just a heads up on that. And as far as reporting other preschool students, do you have your own preschool? How are you reporting those students? Or remember, you have to report any special ed students that are attending Tri-County ESC. Those are students that have to be reportable. You do not report students that attend Tri-County ESC that are gen ed students. So that's just a double reporting. You're not required to do that. On page 14, obtaining and verifying SSID numbers. I'm going to bring up a couple things on this one. The first thing I'm going to bring up is that you do have to have certain elements for the system to generate those SSID numbers. So you have to have last name, first name, date of birth, gender, middle initial, or middle name, or an asterisk, native language, race, birthplace city, and admission reason. If you're missing any of those things, it will not automatically generate an SSID number. The other thing is that probably before school started, everybody wanted those SSID numbers and the system wasn't generating them. It's an automatic generation starting with your calendar's first day of school. It will not automatically generate those until your first day of school. So if you want those SSID numbers generated early, you have to run the program to generate those. And it is also included in this where you do an extract and you can pull those yourself. You're going to upload them. You're going to upload the ones that you don't have into the SSID website. They're going to send those back to you, and you're going to download them, upload them into your DASL or your student information. Does anybody have a question on that? That was a really big issue and we couldn't figure out why they weren't generating. But I could remember in the past that they never really generated. I always ran this program clear through like August. And so I think like now we're just very impatient because now they want us to load, the student data earlier before school starts for free and reduced lunches and those kind of things. But does anybody have any questions on that? Or if you do, of course, we can wait till next year. And if you need some help running that process, we can do that. But we did find out why we weren't getting them. So that makes a big difference too. And I know they're gonna talk about this, when you're doing registration of students, when you generate that student as a new student and they're already out there and maybe you have a non-strict match and you still hit that new student, most likely you're creating another SSID number and another record for exactly the same student. So I know that Shelley's going to go into that more during the registration process, but those are some things that we've found this year. A lot of students have two records out there. So one thing I would recommend on page 16 is, this is task 4, is to verify non-reportable students. And you should take a moment and look at those students. So if you go into EMIS and you're in the S collection, and it might take my thing a minute here to get there. Or 2. If you go into your verify in your S collection, so you follow the breadcrumb trail of student, EMIS, and verify, if you go about halfway down, you're going to see a verify non-reportable student. If you click that, hit next, bring it up for your entire district, and find out, oh, I'm in a school. Sorry about that. I should be in a test district. Sorry about that. Now, you would want to investigate why you are not reporting these students to EMIS. These are non-reportable students. If you have students in there, why are you not reporting them? There are instances where special ed needs to process something and they want a student put in, even though they're not really going to attend, and you may have to go in there and hit do not report to EMIS so they can put in some data. Just as an FYI, I've had that happen in the past, but you would always want to investigate why you have kids that are not marked report to EMIS.
That's what would show up here, the ones that someone clicked that box.
If somebody clicked that box or accidentally clicked that box is the other thing. That's why you would want to investigate that. And I think in the past, we've had a lot of districts have had 1 or 2 kids in there that they just needed some special ed information run on them. Yeah.
So Brenda, we have kids, this kind of goes to a conversation we had yesterday, with Trish on homeschool kids that want to play sports. And so the question was, do you put them in DASL or not? District choice. But this is, we do, just that. We do put our kids in and they get a special code, a special status, and then they're in line.
And they're not reported to EMIS, right? Yeah.
So that could be another situation.
Yeah, and the other one is, I know at a couple districts, they want to report all the special ed kids or all the kids, preschool kids, even the ones that are gen ed at the preschool, they want to go ahead and report those. I think it does create a little bit of a mess, but if they remember to do not report to EMIS, then they have them in there. And then the next year when they actually come into kindergarten, that's their reasoning, is they want them already in there. So, I mean, and again, those are district decisions, but the reportable is what's really important. If they're in here non-reportable and they're correct, non-reportable, that's good. But if they're really supposed to be reported, that's when you'd have to worry about it.
13-year kids, JVS.
Oh, 13. Oh, oh, that's interesting.
13 years student. Okay.
Because then they're adult,
Yeah.
right? Then they're adult. Is that what they're considered at that point?
They're taking advantage of free public education.
Oh,
You have 13 years too?
Oh, no, mine's
It's
23.
me.
Mine's 23.
No,
No, we don't have.
they're usually not with the homeschool.
Yeah.
I had a few that I think were reporting.
13 and not special ed that we're going to the career center?
I don't know. Mine's special ed, so I have,
Right. Right.
sorry, wrong thing.
Yeah, those are 23s.
Yeah, after 23. 23.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 13.
Right.
23 is different.
And I had that 113 that you sent me that I let you know we graduated. But there were 13 of you.
Oh,
Like,
okay. You guys need to work that out. That needs worked out. No, I'm just kidding.
You know,
All right, task 5, page 17. Run the EMIS, FS standing attendance detail report to verify student situation assignments. Anytime that you can run a report to verify, I mean, when you have time, you know, that you're making sure the attendance is, you know, are they on the right calendar? Is the attendance being reported properly? One thing I will tell you, and it's probably even later in this, is that when you have a student that's attending 2 buildings, just a warning. So if you have a student that's attending a middle school and a high school, or a grade school and a middle school, and you have it coded as such, it may not generate the automatic attendance letters and warnings because it takes longer. Because if it's looking at the middle school and they go there 75% of the time and they go to the high school 25% of the time, it's only looking in attendance at those percentages, just so you know. And I had that happen. That's why I'm bringing that up. So we had to go in and change that to generate the letters. So on a kid that missed a lot of school, I mean, truthfully. And this goes on in, on page 18 to talk about verifying, task 6, verifying the percent of time field for students. And again, these are all good reports to look at, and most of them are in the analytics hub to go through and see, are all my kids 100% or are they 50%? Did my preschoolers come in at 50% and they should be at 100%? So that's a good report to look at because your attendance will say 50%. That's how your FTE will also generate over. Yes, Ryan.
So in my, I know it's not cross-check, but in cross-check, any of my students that I have within that we double checked and we put in on both of our percentages, I'm getting a check in there for those part-timers, and it's saying in there they don't have the correct percent, but I'm like, that is correct. I mean, what we're doing is correct.
Right. It probably means you have the default calendar.
Yeah.
You have maybe 25% of the time with you and 75 with her. They're looking at the default calendar as being a full-time calendar. So it's just giving you a warning. Now, remember, cross-check is a warning to check on those things. So when you go in and you can't, you know, it's kind of like a warning that you get through one of the EMIS, you know, reports. Those warnings are not necessarily errors. They are heads up, take a look at this, confirm it, and move on. And then I think you have a little button you can click there not to look at that again once you've confirmed it. Yeah, they could be. Yeah. So always remember that about warnings. They're not necessarily wrong. They just want you to make sure they're correct. And if they are, they are. You ignore them. Okay. So anyway, verifying the percent of time for especially students that don't go 100% of the time. Always a good thing to watch. Ooh, then we get to jump through hoops here on our expelled students. So, since we have to do expelled students differently, and we no longer withdraw them, does everybody understand the process of, are we still educating or are we not educating, and the difference in the coding? Everybody good with that? Everybody had any students that they were educating that are expelled or not educating because they were expelled? No? No questions? Yes. No, that's okay. Oh my gosh, that's what this is for.
I had the opportunity, I thought maybe and say this, that if you have one of our students that are expelled, I have to code them too. Just like if we have an expelled student, I have to let you know, and when that's happened, I just email EMIS coordinator and just kind of said, this is what you need to do, and I usually send a snip of, you know, where that came from in the EMIS manual. That's kind of something that doesn't happen a lot, really.
Yeah.
But it is something that we'll have to code.
Yep, and new coding, you know, on the EMIS situation to cover both of those types of, I mean, a lot of people educate the kids that are expelled because if they're a junior or a senior, they don't want them to fall too far behind. And who, you know, depending on the expulsion reason too, I would guess.
Go over the coding, for class.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you go into a student, and I'm gonna just pull a student up here, so we're gonna go into this 11th grader and say he got expelled. Okay, let's just say that. So you're gonna code him. You're gonna go to his profile screen. You're gonna go to FS standing. And normally you're gonna do a new student standing, and he got expelled on the 10th. And so I'm gonna put in October 10th. This student got into trouble. Now you have to know, based on the discipline of, is this student going to be receiving any education while he's under this expulsion? If you go clear to the bottom in your 600 codes, you're going to see a 632 resident expelled student not receiving education or services. That's it. Now, if they are an expelled student and they are going to receive, if they're going to receive education, that code is differently, and I got to figure that one out. Resident, that's a 634. So you have your 633 expelled student not receiving any education or services, or you have your expelled student receiving education or services. Those are your two codes you use now. Used to be you withdrew them, expelled, that's it. Now that is not how that works. And in fact, I think it probably, what happened when you withdrew an expelled student kind of got lost in the system. And this way you know that you expelled that student, you are still responsible for that student when the expulsion's over. Now you also have to do a discipline on that student because those dates have to match the dates of the expulsion. So you know, so you have to do this, but you also have to have the expulsion in there in the discipline record. Is that clear? Does anybody have any questions about that? If you don't do both, you're going to get an error. You'll get an error on that. No more questions on that? It's fairly new. I think what's this been in effect for 2 years? So, okay, moving on to task 8. But let me know if they have any more questions on that. We can always go back to. You guys have to remind me to move my little screen forward because I have my book with all my notes in it. Okay, verify county of residence. I'm going to bring this up for one reason and one reason only. When you're doing your EMIS, Uncle EMIS check, and you see that your county of residence doesn't match the address, it's a good heads up that maybe that student moved and Final Forms has transferred a new address in and possibly might not still be in your district. So if they were in Wayne County and all of a sudden you see, oh, they're in Mansfield now, they're in Richland County. You don't want to just go in and change that county of residence. You want to find out from your building if they know this student has a new address and why they have a new address. Otherwise, that could possibly be an open enrollment situation. But if you fixed it and you're not giving the heads up to anyone, what I found is a lot of people just hit that transfer button on Final Forms and are not verifying what they're changing when they're hitting that transfer button. This is a great way to find some of those things. I'm not saying it always works, but it's a good way to find some of those things. So that's just kind of what I found lately, because I went to fix one and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I wonder if they even looked at this. Task number 9, update fiscal year began 9th grade. This is an ad hoc update. These are all errors until you fix them. Some districts go in and they fix them one by one. They're freshman kids that come in. You can do an ad hoc update, pull all your ninth graders, update that. If you've never done it before, we're happy to help. There's also instructions on how to do that. One of my favorite things to do is a student profile bulk update. When you find out, you've missed something and you could just go in and correct it all at once. And those instructions are in the middle of the page. And it just tells you exactly how to get to that. And I can show you if you guys are interested in seeing that. Whoops, there we go. So if you are here, you go to student information, you're gonna go to management, you're gonna ad hoc updates, and then student bulk profile update. Now you can do a lot with this, or you can do a little. You can do just one. So if I want to go to the high school and I want to look at the ninth graders, I just want to look at it. And so I might go, oh, geez, what do I got to do here? Do I need to so I might make one, I'll make a new ad hoc and I might say ninth grade update. And I always put a year in here, 2026, so that I know what I've got here. And you go down to the additional tab and all I want to look for is ninth graders. I don't want to look for anybody else. And I also want all the ninth graders to be selected by default because I don't want to have to do that either. And I hit search. Oh, I have 3. You guys will have a few more. So anyway, I would pull those 3 and I'd say, okay, I'm going to use this and I want to go on and I want to keep moving. The kids are already there and I just forgot to hit that. Dang it. I didn't save it. So anyway, you move through that, you can fix that to 2026 and you've just fixed 100 or 200 or 300 kids all at one time, just by finding that. Everybody's probably done that. So I'm just really reviewing something that is already done.
I have a question about that because I don't do enrollment. And so I do this at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But then what about the freshman that enrolls in December?
So you're going to get an error on that student if they didn't put it in.
Okay, so it will error out.
It'll say that you're missing that and you go in and just do that one student. The other thing to be sure of, speaking of which, help desk tickets, you really want to make sure that you've put that freshman year in right. So, sometimes you get, an immigrant student who doesn't speak English, and they come in and they're 17 years old. Are they a true junior? Have they ever been in high school before? Did they attend school in their other country? So, you want to watch those things. And are you starting them out with a freshman schedule? So I think, just a district used that. A student came in and they put him as a junior 2 years ago. Then they retained them. Okay. And then they didn't come back, but they were a junior the year that they were a senior. They're in that cohort. And so that's just an incorrect coding. And there's really, you can't really fix it when you do it like that. Now, if you accidentally do put the wrong cohort in, the wrong freshman year, that's completely different. But that freshman year that you enter is going to affect that cohort and it doesn't change. They're a freshman, then they move. So they're a 4-year graduate, then they're a 3, and they're going to move right up into it. If you retain those kids, they stay in that cohort. Or if you have a student that graduates early, they stay in their same cohort. So if you have an 11th grader that graduates this year, they're going to stay in the cohort for next year, not for this year. You can change all the coding you want. They're not changing cohorts, just for an FYI. Okay. All righty. Oh, now I've really done it. There we go. There we go. Thank you guys for being patient because I talk and then I forget to move screens and then I get all caught up in something. Update disadvantage values in the FD tab. FD tab, this pulls over for the Ohio Department of Education for funding. So making sure that FD tab or the disadvantage code, is correct in that FD tab. And we got these districts now that have that CEP money. So you got all kinds of different codes now. There used to be 3 codes. asterisks and free and reduced. Not that way anymore. So you've got all your 4 codes there. Those first 4 codes are all CEP. So I know we have a few districts in here that have free and reduced lunches for their entire district. That means every one of their kids have to have one of these codes. Now, for everybody, that free and reduced is important information to have, because that controls your disadvantage percentage, which controls a lot of things that happen in your district. So it doesn't alleviate the fact that you still don't have to know who is free and reduced. It's just saying, hey, we have to use different codes. That's all it is saying. Does everybody understand that? I know we have at least 2 districts in here now that have the CEP grant. I know you're one. Is Triway one too? Oh, Lori, you guys are? Worcester is now too? You're not. Okay. Okay. So some districts qualify. You are, Janelle, too?
No,
Oh, okay. So some districts qualify, and some districts, if they don't quite qualify, they're gonna pay that extra money to qualify. So it just depends on your district. And you have a question?
I do have a question. If a student starts the year, qualified for free lunches, food, direct serves, whatnot, then mid-year, I get a new report saying that the student is no longer qualifies. Do we change that, or there's some confusion? Food service, director thinks, I think from the free and reduced lunch standpoint, once free, always free, but I don't know from EMIS reporting. Is it the same? Do I change that disadvantagement from free to no longer free, or do I keep reporting it since they started the year?
You know, I'm gonna look into that because, yeah, if you wouldn't mind. And the reason I'm asking you to put a ticket in is that I used to always change that.
I do.
Because food service would give that to me and say, these people came off. And so I assumed that I should do it.
And that's what I've been doing, but so,
And I don't think it doesn't say that anywhere in here, once free, that you leave it.
so I don't know if that comment is just affects her piece of it from the actual getting the free lunch or waiving the fees. I'm just not sure on the EMIS reporting how that affects me. So I'll just put, I don't know, does anybody else
Well,
change their?
I changed mine. I would like to know.
Okay, so you're changing yours.
I've always changed mine, and especially if it's like, if they're free this year, and they stay free, you have to carry them free until October 1st. But if they don't submit anything new, this is before we were CEP, but then I would definitely take them off. They would not get their fees waived because they didn't qualify at all that year. But if they come off in January, what's the guideline?
Well, and to be honest, if you guys remember when we were doing that what is that? PEBT funding? That used to ask for days. How many days in December? How many days in January? How many days in February? So that makes me think that in the EMIS world, we would change that date. And you brought up another good point. If you leave it, it's going to roll into the next year, and they're going to get free lunches until the October, whatever date it is, October 1st, whatever date it is. So that's kind of, but I will get an absolute answer for
Okay,
that.
I'll put it in help.
Okay, that would be
And then,
great.
like, for the fee piece of it, if they come off in January and I already waived their fees, I'm now not gonna unwaive them.
Right.
And they pay, but it's do you change it? I don't know.
And that's what our district does, like that's
Right.
what our high school, she said, I'm not gonna undo it, but I just wasn't clear on the issue.
Right.
Yeah. I think the EMIS piece is what gets changed. I think you're right about the food service piece. It may not get changed because it could mean something else for pay schools and for those kind of things. But I think for us, I think that because our data goes forward, we would have to have correct data, and plus audit reasons too. I don't know, but I will find out for sure, Okay, task 11, verify race, for newly enrolled students. And I think we all do that because if you don't, you will get an Uncle EMIS error. And people were talking about that. Sometimes people don't fill that out. It is something that whoever registers can do a visual too. But I would probably ask the question just to be safe, because sometimes people want to be they want to be put into a different group. So, and it's really up to the parent, to be honest with you. And then another one, verify student language other than English or native language. And that's where you jump into your, limited English proficiency students and those kind of things. And that's kind of a good target when you see see a student that has a different language in there. There it is. You know that maybe English may not be their first language. Ooh, task 13, what everybody's been waiting on. No, I'm just kidding. Verify and update CTE program of concentration. Most districts have now went to a spreadsheet to keep track of all of this stuff. Some haven't. ODE also keeps track of this stuff. So you do sometimes have kids that qualify under 2 different programs of concentration, and then you never know which one to use, so this is kind of another district decision, if they were in ag for 3 years, but then they switched to, construction, in the last 2 years of, that they've got 2 and 3. But I think, this is something that should be tracked by your high school, possibly by the CTE department or high school secretary, or Veronica. No, I'm just kidding, Veronica. I know Veronica's laughing about it. So, but anyway, this is something that we also do later, but this is so important because you're gonna have to report these kids' areas concentration. You got to go back in, do the exiting student, so, and if you miss one, ODE will catch it, in case you're wondering. You report 15 kids and ODE has 17, you will be reporting 17. So everybody knows. And it goes on through, as far as the instructions, how to do it in the FN tab. It walks you right through step by step of how you code these students. And that goes through page 27. Does anybody have any questions on this? As fun as this is, the reports are really good that you get from the Ohio Department of Education. Really good, easy to follow. You marked a kid a concentrator, but they're not. You go back in, you're like, oh, geez, I got to take this kid out. There's areas that you can correct. So it's
Every year, it seems like I have the CTAC 101 report where I have 77 critical errors. And every time they're all informational.
yes.
And it never updates, like the process date. I even brought it up at a conference down in Columbus. They said they'd look into it, never got back to me. But the process date is always 12/31/0. And the time is 0000. I
And
just feel
let-
like it's a glitch that.
Let's take a look at that. Oh, I'm gonna have to, I don't know if I can't look at that through the test site because I won't have, can I look at it through Worcester? Is that okay? Am I okay on that?
Yeah.
For recording purposes, am I okay? Okay, okay. So I'm gonna go to Worcester just to use you as an example here. Oh, I'm not gonna go to Worcester. I lied. On this report, I'm going to, but it's just not here. I'm doing it. Sorry. Now I'll go to Worcester. Okay, so Lori, on your. Is this in your L collection?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's under level 2s. Oh, I see them. Okay, so they're criticals and you say they never go away?
I mean, they're informational. But
Oh,
it's
they're-
like it never updates. So it says there's 77 criticals, which I feel like I have to always just go in and check to make
Right.
sure critical didn't sneak in with information.
Well, and it's right, like it wants you, it's telling you, hey, you need to look at these. Are these right? And you can see sometimes where you've got kids listed more than once, and sometimes it's a different CTE program. Sometimes it's the same.
Well, and these are listed twice because.
Oh, it's
of
the,
their
it's the
EMIS
line. Now, but sometimes you get them twice because it's two different CTE areas.
Right.
So again, when you see this informational, it's not telling you it's wrong, but it does want you to look at it. I
But-
mean, or informational, yours are all informational. They're not critical or they're not warnings.
Right, so that's what it, like, they're corrected, but every year it just never updates to say they're informational.
Oh, well, let me check
And
on
then
that one.
process state,
Okay,
right?
so the criticals and the warnings never go away. They just stay there even though they change to informational.
Right, and the process date never changes.
Okay,
Like I submitted this on October 15th, all the reports say 10/15 except for that first one. Says December 31st of the year. Does the number change? Well, I made corrections, so all the other bottom ones have gone away. But there are 77. Informational. That number is like the one correct thing, so the number matches, but that the critical doesn't match and the date.
and that happens on a few reports that we get where it'll say critical or it'll say fatal and you'll open it and it'll say informational. And so you kind of get into a point where do I need to worry about that? But I just might ask some questions about that. Okay, Lori, and just see what comes up with that. All right.
For the dashboard.
Right, right. We don't know why it doesn't refresh as EMIS people. I guess that's the biggest question is why doesn't it refresh? Okay, so we're gonna move on to task 14. Update October 31 IEP outcome field. So you get this in a warning or an error, a fatal error in your federal child count. Do not ignore this. You have to go in and correct these students. Something has to change on them, and it's up to your special ed person to tell you how those change. Most likely they've had a new IEP and they go from a preschool IEP to a elementary IEP. So I'm just going to tell you not to ignore those. Those do need corrected. Task number 15.
Brenda, can I say
Oh,
something on that?
absolutely.
I just had, a directors, we kind of talked about that. Because we had some issues, that the preschool students, they were transferring the IEPs back to the home district and then they were amending them versus changing their outcome ID on the FN270. So I did talk to them about it, so hopefully it's reported right because they're not supposed to be amending them to change that, so. And then if you ever see me sign, because same goal, they always sign best. If I send, information about special ed, I'm going to sign best. They did.
There you go.
And what, no, because nobody was on mine. Yeah, because we had that issue. Yeah. There was a couple districts, yeah.
So those are not to be ignored. They must be corrected and you have to get that information from the special ed director or administrator. And some of them do it themselves. Some of them have the EMIS person do it because it's an EMIS screen according to them. And so those are just some things. And I know there's also some preschool questions on when to enroll a preschooler when their services don't start until August, but they've written everything in May. And so in the past, some districts have went ahead and put them in May with the consent, the referral, and then they finish it when school starts, with as far as services. I know that you can't have a date in the future when you're doing an IEP or, so I think that's something we're gonna have to look into too, because I've had a lot of questions on that. And so I'll get with Shelley on that one and see what the actual proper protocol is on that between the ESC preschool and the district themselves. So, but I don't ignore those. I'm just not sure how to answer them right now. Task 15, update English learner options for students. Whoops, turned it too fast. I think everybody, if they're servicing kids that are English language learners, this is where it goes. should have direction either from your special ed department, or if you actually have a department that takes care of this, which I know some do and some don't. And it also even gives you like the valid codes that you need to use there. Just as a reminder, those codes get updated every year because they're all based on how many days. So you need to watch those codes too. Oh, task 16, the retained and promoted status for students. We talked about this last year, and especially on kids especially third grade. So, you have this third grader, they didn't pass their state testing, and in ODE's world, they're retained. So if you have this student this year, 25, 26, and they have not passed their necessary testing requirements to go on to the fourth grade, what you have to do in the 25, 26 school year is put that their grade next year is going to be 3, and that's how they're going to get promoted over. They're going to get promoted over into third grade. Now they're really going to go to fourth grade. We all know that. Most of the kids, whether it's by parent or whatever. So you're going to have to go in and change their grade level. And then you're going to have to give a reason why they were promoted to fourth grade. Was it the parents? Who made that decision? So you do not report the reason in 25, 26. You report the reason in 26, 27. And we'll go over this closer to the end of the year, just as a reminder. I think everybody's kind of done with this, but just as a reminder. Task 17, update military student identifier. And I think we're all kind of on top of this now. And this is one that they said, if you've marked it in this school year, it stays all school year. Even if the parent gets discharged, leaves the military, whatever, you leave the data, but you have to remember to update it in the next school year. But this is one of those things that stay all year long, okay? All right, task number 18, admitted from IRN, how received IRN. Okay, we all know this is where we get into our ODEX errors, because we've said they came from one place, they came from another. When you're reviewing your ODEX errors, it's a really good idea to just review these and find out why you're getting it. Probably just where you thought they were going, they didn't go. But it goes into a lot of detail here. And you can run the attendance detail report, and it'll tell you that admitted from IRN and withdrawn to IRN if you want it in a report. But if you've used certain codes, you have to put in an IRN number. Now, they're also saying that sometimes 99999 works, but it won't stop you from getting ODEX errors if you decide to take that shortcut. And where they're going or where they're coming from, really, that other district has marked you. And it's a good idea to update it to match exactly where that student went or came from. And you can see it in ODEX. Once you report the student, you can go in and see their history and know that they came from, Northwestern and they went to Worcester, or they left Northwestern, and they went to Triway. Yes.
What happens if they originally came from said district, and then they move into another district and is now open enrolled? Do you change that? Do you leave it?
It's just a warning in ODEX, so it's really up to you. You have to decide. There are certain things in ODEX that are money issues. Your EC, PT, whatever. You need to also look at your RFIC, because if you're not reporting someone and someone's pointing to you. So I think there's only 2 of those that are serious money issues. So you'd want to watch for those for sure. Whether you correct the other ones, how clean do you want it? There are some people in this room that just really want it clean. That may be impossible. I didn't name anybody. A couple people have smiled, but they really just want it clean. And so they really just want you to clean it up too. It would be out of respect that if I called and said, hey, Northwestern has this error, could you please clean that up? That if it's not such a big thing, you just clean it up. If it's right. I mean, only if it's right, not if I just want you to do it for my sake. So anyway, ODEX is just such a a wonderful place to find so much information. I mean, when you go up and look, you can look at a record for one student. You can see everything educationally possible on that student. I mean, you don't have to wait for test scores to come in. They're out there if you want to see them. There's special educations out there. Shoot, their preschool test scores are out there if you want those. So that's just a really great resource, really great resource. Oh, here we go. Task number 19. When to when to update the exit status field. So it goes through the reasoning on why you want to do this. A district reports a student with a withdrawal code of 74. Move not known to be continued. FYI, that's a dropout code. Anything in the 70s is a dropout code. You look in ODEX and that kid is attending Ohio Virtual or somewhere. That would be a great time to update that and to correct it. So you're not taking, a hit on this kid. So they didn't come to school for the last 2 months. They moved. Did they move? You don't know. You can't get a hold of the kid. Nobody's answering. The parents won't tell you anything. And you can go in and correct that later. But again, ODEX is a great resource to find those things, especially on your dropouts, Okay. I don't know how many people have used that. I think I've used it once or twice in the past. Over the, past couple years. Task 20, run the student roster detail, the R101A, to verify students' demographics and disability information is correct. It's a great report. It's not easy to read, but you can compare it to the special ed spreadsheets that you can get from your special ed person, if that's your thing to do. Some districts have people that handle all the special ed and the coding, and some districts, the special ed administrator does it. Sometimes there's a secretary that does it. Just depends. But I still say all these reports, you can look at a report and you can say, oh, that kid's not open enrolled. What in the world? So on their general tab, they have an A, and on their FS standing tab, they have a code 151 for being open enrolled. Which tab's right? Which tab's wrong? So just as another heads up. All right, run student verification, UNCLEMIS. We all do it, and we all should probably do that at least once a week. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We go into EMIS, we go into our S collection. That's what we're working on today. We go verify student data, and we go to verify student demographics, UNCLEMIS. This always tells me this is your first line of errors. This is your first line of what you have to correct. Oh, wow. Okay, so we don't work in the test site very often, as you can see, but you can see like there's of course no state student IDs, but you're going to get your the wrong county in this area. You're going to get your withdrawal errors, your admission errors. They've got no SSID number. Now, if they're here and they're fatal, they're not going anywhere. You can send it all over to EMIS-R. Guess what? These aren't going. So if these kids are attending your district, and so this test district would be a terrible thing to use because they're all SSID errors. Here's one, percent of time not specified, but they're fatals. You have to go in and clean all fatals up. Warnings will go through, but I mean, I would clean those up too, because this is your first line of errors. This is the first place you go. So as you run your UNCLEMIS errors, clean those up. You do want those to be at 0. So as an EMIS coordinator, that'll feel really good, because that is one thing that you want to be at 0. While I'm always in there at the UNCLEMIS errors, so I'm done with those, and I don't know if I want to submit yet, because there's some other things that I think maybe I should check. And so as I go through this, I can verify discipline. I can verify memberships. There's our non-reportable students, but I can also verify special ed. And so for me, it's also my first line to let the special education person know that, hey, I've got these errors on my very first line of defense. And some of them are relatively easy to correct. You know, they need a special education event is required when student has a disability condition. So I would look at this student and say, oh, so they have a disability condition. Do they not? Oh, I'm getting blocked. So do they not have a current IEP? Or should that disability condition, was it brought over from one year to the next year? So this is like our first line for special education errors too. So it's kind of nice to be able to go in there and say, I could go ahead and send this out to my special education person before I even submit one other thing. So as we go down through here, you see special education, majority of attendance, it all automatically updates. You know, we do that at the end of the year. Course summary, end of the year, attendance updates every night. But it's okay to go in and look at these things and see if there's anything that needs tweaked before you send your data over to EMIS-R. Now, once you're happy with this, we'll just talk a little bit about that. Once we're happy, hey, you know what? I verified, I cleaned as much as I could today. You know, there might be some things that you do have hanging out there. That's when you're going to do your transfer student data. And when you're doing that, you're going to actually take it all and you're going to transfer it all over into the flat file and submit it. That's the only way this data is going to get to the Ohio Department of Education. But you're not done yet. Okay, so you've got more steps, and we're going to talk about those steps because tasks 22 and 23 are just for community schools. So we're going to skip over those. And if you guys want to take a 10-minute break, go to the restroom, get a piece of candy, whatever you need to do, and then we will resume at 10 microphones.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. So I left off saying that I was going to skip task 22 and 23. I may have lied about that. We are not going to skip it. Task 22 is for community schools only. But I think we all know task 23 is not the case anymore. Now I'm saying that kind of like a question mark afterwards, because in this documentation, you're going to read that it is required for community schools and optional for traditional districts. However, we are hearing from the top that this is something that is going to be required for traditional districts. I know a lot of people have already done this because we got help desk tickets on it, and it created a bit of a stir. And what it was is the student contact records. Now, I don't know if everybody received a call from their food service people. Like before school started, they said, could you please submit the students in cross-reference? They knew enough to say in cross-reference, which means you have to do your S collection. You have to get it over there for the year. And then you have to submit your cross-reference. You skipped your S collection and you went straight to cross-reference. And you did that because that helped your food service people get some of the kids in there. I felt real funny about doing it because I felt it wasn't accurate. However, it was enough for them to get started and it saved them a lot of work. And so I think that's what mattered to them, because now food services and ODEX, you know, direct cert and those kind of things are all hanging out over there. So moving past cross-reference, which we'll come back to later, we have what you call student contact records. And that's in EMIS-R. And I'm still in Worcester, so I'm just going to warn you guys of that because I don't have those things. But when you go down, hope you don't care, Lori, do I have your permission again? So you have your cross-reference, which we all know we use. And I'm going to bring that up, is every time you do your S collection submission to ODE, you do your cross-reference. Cross-reference is what puts it in ODEX. Very important to get ODEX errors cleaned out that you've done this. But again, remember, you start in student information, you throw it over into EMIS-R. EMIS-R then gets pushed on to ODE. So it's a 3-step process. Doesn't work properly unless you've done all of it. So student cross-reference is what we used for anybody who helped their food service department out, sent that before they did their S collection, probably before everything was cleaned up in S, just to be honest. We just did it to get it off our plates. So task 23 is student contact collection. This collection was confusing to all of us, but I think most of us did it. David Ely, EMIS at ODE, or do, whatever you want to call it, said, do it. And I wouldn't have believed you guys, except I heard him say it like 3 or 4 times just in some trainings that I was in. He says, do it. Here it says community schools required task, optional for traditional districts. I think us doing it now puts us ahead of the ball game because it will become a requirement according to him. So if you haven't done it, I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, you need to do it. If you want to mess with it a little bit, you actually need to follow the instructions that are listed in the middle of the page. Now, one thing you have to remember is that student contacts is only going to bring 1 record over per student. So you're going to get all this stuff that looks like a mess. You know, you're going to get John Doe with 6 records because we got his mom's record, his dad's record, we got his aunt's record, his grandma's record, his grandpa's record. It's only going to take 1 record. So you got to be able to ignore the rest of those records. Is he in? Did his contacts come over? This tells you that in progress or in student information, if you want that to happen in the middle of the page, you must do the contact type code maintenance. You have to connect it to be able to do the contact transfer. Is there anybody who has not run this process? We'll talk about doing it. Okay. We'll talk about doing it. Anybody on Zoom that has not run this process, if you have not run this process and you want to, if you send a help desk ticket to me, I will walk you through this process. It'll be much easier than sometimes bumping around like you're on bumper cars to get to the end result. Do we have any other questions about this for those who have already done it? Oh my gosh, nobody's raising their hand?
They'll just put in tickets later.
Okay. That's okay too. That's okay too. And it goes through this. I mean, we're talking pages of it from page 38 clear through page 41 with additional information if you really want to dive in and make sure that everything is where it needs to be, which I think EMIS people are great at doing that. And I think you've all done it. And so good job. And I really do feel like you are ahead of the ball game on this one. So great. We are going to jump to page 42 now. Oops. In your handout. Now, when we go to calendars, exception days, and attendance patterns, we would have handled all of that in calendar training. Now, if you're getting calendar errors, that means something is not quite right. It actually recommends that you run a sub-calendar analysis report, which again is in your analytics hub. And again, a really good resource, another really good report. So I think that's, but you can see that at the bottom of this, it says consult your FY26 calendar checklist documentation. So that also walks you through step by step, and that's been posted. If you miss it, you can go back and re-watch it. It was my first training. Keep that in mind, but you can go back and watch it. But the step by step is extremely good without my voice. So you know. Okay, so on to task 25. And I do want to say, when Shelley and I were setting up these trainings, we were very concerned about the trainings that were 3 hours long. And our hope was to make sure that no trainings went longer than 2 hours. But this particular training, we had a lot of questions on whether we could do it in 2 hours. I mean, we think we can, but it also gives us a little additional time that if we wanted to do some question and answer, that we can do that. But it's also going to give us a chance to know, like next year, hey, this is what we need, even to finish this year, to do the, the initial, the mid, and the final. We're going to know, hey, we don't need the kind of time that we thought we needed. So anyway, task 25, verify students are assigned to the correct attendance calendar. You can find that in a number of different ways. You can get errors over in, oh my gosh, I forget, what do we use all the time? Not cross-reference, but cross-check. Cross-check. You can find them there and they are accurate. So if you pull those errors there, you just need to fix them in your student information, because most likely you brought a kid in with a default calendar and they should have had a senior calendar, and you may have changed it on the general tab, but you did not change it on the FD tab. So it just wants those two things to match, and it's necessary that they match. Your kindergartners, your staggered starts, those two need to match in both of those areas. So if you look in cross-check, that helps you move along pretty quickly and to get those corrected. Also, Analytics Hub has a calendar comparison, which also makes it really easy if you aren't in cross-check. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of information there. And task 26, acceleration records and tier 2 dyslexia screeners. Your acceleration records come from your gifted or counselors, depending on who takes care of that. And those are in the FB tab. And it actually walks you through that student information, SIS, student assessment, FB. And the reason they're asking for this is that it will, oops. I'm going to go to that just so you guys know. Oh, I moved. I won't be looking at Worcester anymore. Thanks, Lori, for letting me get in there. So if I want to look at a student and I want to see, say they are, do I even have any grade school kids?
Switch district
Oh,
or switch building.
elementary, there we go.
F.
Oh, F? All right, let's see. Oh, it's just taking a minute. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just looking for a student. And we're going to go to this tab. It's just taking a little bit. It's not taking a little bit, it's taking a lot. Okay, there we go. So if I have this 4th grader and they're accelerating, maybe they're only accelerating in one subject, maybe they've accelerated to a different grade level. So if you do that grade level acceleration, this student would change from 4th grade to 5th grade, and maybe a new student standing based on the date that they decided to accelerate. They usually try not to do that mid-year, but that also affects the tests the kids are going to be taking. And you want to make sure that you've covered all your bases on acceleration to be able to get those extra points. So in this case, this student maybe is just going to be accelerated in math. Instead of taking 4th grade math, maybe they're going to take 5th grade math. So I'm going to go into SIS. I'm going to look the student up first, go into SIS, go into student. I'm going to go into assessment, and I'm going to go into student acceleration FB tab, which is right there. There we go. I'm going to add that record, and I'm going to pick the assessment area. If it's math, I'm going to put math, and I'm going to put the flag to yes. So I'm going to save that, and that student will now be coded as accelerated in math. Now, if they're already in the 5th grade math course, it's going to come through your test site to give them that test. But here's where it's saying, hey, this kid's 4th grade, but they're taking a 5th grade math test. It's where you get your extra points. I just want to bring that up. So that is your acceleration. And they have to have an acceleration plan to be able to do this. They have to have a WAP. So everybody knows we can test a kid in 5th grade math because we think they're smart enough, but they should have an acceleration plan written first. Because that's the only way to cover all your bases again, to get that extra gifted bonus. All right, so that's just one example. And then early entrance students should also be reported with an option A on the next page, on page 46. If they were evaluated per your local policy and found to be eligible to begin kindergarten or first grade early, that means they're past they did not qualify to start school, but you guys have evaluated them and decided to let them start school. That's just a little bit about the acceleration. Now, I would definitely recommend working with your gifted on any of these things, on your acceleration plans, on your testing types, who's taking these tests and why. I usually send out an email, try to cover like the principal, the secretary, and the gifted person and say, hey, I'm looking for acceleration. I'm looking for kids that are in a certain grade level that may not be taking that test. I don't want to be missing a test later. Or then I'm going to say, okay, but has somebody written a WEP for them, or a WEP, or where are they at on this whole process? So just as an FYI. Task 27, update tier 2 dyslexia screener. You know, I think this dyslexia and this reading diagnostic has been a real challenge for most people to try to get it in and get it logged right and to not miss any boxes. And, you know, I've had a district say, all my kids say that none of them were on track for the last school year because they missed a box. Well, you know what? Let's do it this year. I mean, you can't fix last year. Let's do it this year and move forward. And I think that's what I'm going to tell you about all of these things. If you've missed something reporting in the past, don't beat yourself up. Just do it right. You know, you can't go back and fix in the past, but the problem is that we don't have like real experts on these dyslexia and reading diagnostic testing. And so it makes it really hard for us to be able to figure out how we're going to do this and the proper coding based on what tests they've given. So when you're talking about your tier 2 dyslexia screener, tier 2 dyslexia screener results are to be reported in the traditional second and third window. So it's not something that you have to do right now, but I do want to bring it up because here we are in October. Our first window closes in January, but let's be honest, Christmas break is in there. And so when we get back from Christmas break, there are going to be things that are going to be required of us. And so I'm just going to bring this up. We can go over it in detail, but it is not in this submission that they're going to look for this. But if you read down through this, you're going to see, as you can see from the screenshot below, they have crossed out third grade reading guarantee. Remember how we used to go in there and mark, we'd go in and do a mass update. Everybody was on track, and then we'd have to go in and manually fix the kids that were off track. Don't have to do that anymore. But we do have to update all of the testing. So tier 2 dyslexia screeners are reported in the traditional second and final window. So, and then it goes on to community schools and STEM, as you can see from the screenshot. The field is reportable per Ohio law. Again, just as we're talking about the new law for CTE, we're talking about the law here. Districts and community schools are required to complete the tier 2 dyslexia screener for certain students. At one point, they have to be evaluated for this or tested, screened. The student profile bulk update can also be used just as we used it in the past when we're updating the third grade reading guarantee. So we can use this too, and we can mark every student based on what grade level was screened, mark them all as not at risk, and then go in and change the few students that were at risk. So if we look up the student, let's just look at this kid. So we're going to go to the FN tab.
I don't think that.
Oh yeah, they won't be marked, yeah. And you can see at the bottom, the third grade reading guarantee that is not required anymore. But right above that, you see that little thing that's highlighted. Well, it's not green on my screen, is it? right here, dyslexia screener result, not assessed, at risk, not at risk. Oh. So there we have it. We can do the bulk update, probably best to do assess, not at risk. And then go back and just change the few students that are at risk. And seriously, most districts will have a handful, maybe, maybe not. Any questions on that? Because we love it.
Districts that are using, data map. that'll-
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's a new transfer. Perfect.
I'm gonna double check that, but I'm thinking that's,
Yeah.
they replaced it.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
I did cricket.
well, I will say one thing.
My personal thing. But. It's the one work with her, and you don't need to have that.
And I know, I think I worked with the rent. Okay, I think I worked with her. Somebody was asking me different questions about the differences. We have one district that decided to go to same goal with rent. Not as easy importing EMIS as it is through data map. And since we're an all-in bundle, you guys all have data map, so that is my strong suggestion is to use it for that. Your test scores are right there, the data map, the RIMP import is right there. So if you need me to talk to them or give them a demo.
I just don't think I know.
Yeah, if you wanna set something up, I can kind of give them a demo and show them how to set, how it works with the scores and the RIMP and all that. So.
Now, does all the rinse.
I did that at Ashland.
With all the, like, now that the tracking report. That all. I don't think we did that much.
Like this year, I went to Ashland just to work with the sixth grade team because it was new to them to write RIMP. They've never done it before and coding and so forth.
Veronica, I might add that Shelley did that a couple years ago at Northwestern. And I sat in on the training because I was the one that recommended it. And my recommendation was, if you are writing a RIMP and then you're transferring it onto a Google sheet and then I'm coding it into student information, it's gone through could be three different people, could be three different areas. The idea of a mistake happening it's probably going to happen. And so I wanted to kind of take myself out of the mix, and the person that's writing the RIMP, it's going to come directly from them straight to student information. There's no question about who did it. It's from here to here.
She has a big spreadsheet. I have to.
Right. And so you know what, missing a kid. I mean, there's just so much at risk there that using data map is like, for me, I sat in on that training and I understood what she was saying. And I didn't know anything about data map at all. So I would definitely recommend like the percentage of error in comparison to just transferring it. It takes that out. And you know who made the error if there's an error. Yeah. So that's just,
Membership?
yes.
And
Oh,
does
yeah.
it add the tutoring
No.
part to it too?
It doesn't
No,
have to do
no.
it.
Okay.
But tutoring.
Yeah,
If you
It
have
should. Yes, it should. You hide your
you
district
have to
by
add the code though. They have to add the code in the. You have to add.
Yes,
the code.
they have to.
Oh, yeah,
it has to
yeah.
be added, yes,
Yeah.
because it was a newer code. It was probably never checked.
Okay.
And after today, tonight is our new release, for version 25.1. Any RIMP that is created will require the 152.8 XX, code. You have to have one of those. And I was composing something, I haven't sent it out yet, but any of the previous RIMPs that were made that did not include one of those have to be, that code has to be added to that student.
I manually entered those tutoring codes because they didn't transfer over.
But I'll look at, see if it's checked or not checked.
Let me just hear anything.
Yeah,
manually.
yeah, and I think it was like late in the year.
But the transfer is almost to, like, I second guess it because.
It is, it is,
Yeah.
so.
So everybody needs to hear that.
And that's just part of, we currently have.
So one thing to remember, yes, it's part of the package, and I know Craig puts in, like, the progress monitoring data and stuff like that. I know he does that for your district. One thing that you have to remember is, like, the program codes that you use this year, they used to wipe them out every summer, and then you would have to go back in and check. And I don't, he said it was in place for a couple of years. I don't remember it being in place for a couple of years, and I'm on the committee, and I don't remember this. But now they just, so when they switch from one school year to the next, they automatically just carry over. So people aren't going in and checking any of the new ones. So the new ones are getting missed because they're not completely wiping them out like they used to. And then the districts would have to go in and reselect. I kind of like that process better, so they're going and, checking them to make sure they have the right one selected for their district. For now, they're kind of just like, okay, that's well. So, but that's my guess for you, Amanda, is that it was never checked.
Well, we just started doing it, so I'm guessing that one will just.
Don't do things manually like that, ask first.
It wasn't a lot, so. And I did it as like that, like, just search for grade and everything, but. Okay, it wasn't.
My gal, but just had to put all the tutoring memberships in, because she didn't do those. And, well, no, she manually entered the RIMs as well.
Oh,
So I don't know that we know that that's a possibility.
So
I
you,
didn't mention that.
so you guys know, this transfer is in EMIS. If you've never looked at it before, when you go to student information, EMIS, and you go down here, data map, EMIS imports, you can pick. Okay, so look at this. There's your dyslexia, tier 2, and there's your program code. So just so you know, they're there. And you're right, it seems too easy to do, but you're also taking yourself out as middleman. That's what you're doing. So I just keep that in mind when you recommending these kind of things. I mean, there's a reason there's things are out here. It's kind of the same thing with the special ed transfer from same goal into student information. You take yourself out, a lot of times somebody's going to hand an EMIS person or a secretary that special ed form, and they're manually putting that in. And again, that chance for error, but if you are doing the transfer, you're just doing what's in same goal. Whether it be membership codes, whether it be the program codes or whatever membership, and then the IEPs, the ETRs, and then the disability condition, it's all going to come over. It's not you that was in a hurry and clicked a 10 instead of a 12. So those are just some things that there's a lot of things that are in place out there. And maybe it's not just your job that makes it easy. Maybe it's anybody's job in the district that it makes it easier to do. All righty. So moving on to task 28. Oh, my student withdrawal overrides, summer withdrawal records, and student reported in error records. Now, these particular areas are super important, especially at the beginning of the school year. So there is always got to be a record for every single student. And now with us submitting our stuff so early in the year, we're going to get more of these errors on students that didn't show up, that maybe shouldn't have been entered, whatever it might be. But I'm going to say that expunging students is so dangerous. Here's the problem with expunging. So you expunge a student instead of properly withdrawing them, okay? But then that student comes back in the same year. And so then you try to put them in, but it won't let you do it because it says the SSID or the student number is already in use. It will not let you re-enter them. It's a mess. It's a help desk ticket and it is a lot to get that to work then. But if you do an FC record, you can then re-enroll that student later. But we're gonna get to that. So withdrawal records, that's the FC record. Summer withdrawal records, that's a student that was in last year that never came back. Why did they withdraw? Did they graduate last year? What happened? What happened? Students reported an error, which is the code 81. So we can use all of those things. We need to make sure we're using them in the right context. That's all. So it goes into explaining. So if you go on, this is just a short blurb here, but if you go on to page 20 or 49, I'm back in the 20s again. Oh my gosh. If you go back, it goes forward to page 20 or 49, it tells you summer withdrawal. Add a summer withdrawal record. This is a student that's already sitting in there. Why are you going to withdraw them? And it says there's an actual summer withdrawal record that you can put in. It's right there. Withdrawal date, reason. And so instead of just doing an 8-1, you may come in here and do the 8-1 withdrawal right here and save it. I would definitely pay attention to that when you find any students, especially at the beginning of the year, that should not be in your current school year. Even for your missing preschool students, so what I found is a couple districts, the preschool students that were here last year and they didn't show up this year, they just expunged them. So no withdrawal date over here. And they're not entered here. They're a missing student. So, you know, the cleanest thing for me is to re-enter them using the 7-1 date and then withdraw them using the 8-1 date so that I can get them in. Yes.
So now you got me worried. We had a family that enrolled, and then the same day that the girls, the buildings enrolled them, we found out that they weren't coming. They were coming from out of state.
Oh, okay.
So the buildings just expunged them.
Before you had a chance to submit anything.
Right, but now, and they asked after the fact, I said, I think you'll be fine. Now I'm wondering, what if that family comes back?
Did they have an SSID number? If they didn't have an SSID number, probably not going to cause you a problem if they come back the next year or come back.
I'm just like, they were coming from out of state, they're being, they were, you know, that family. I don't know what happened, but she said, we're not coming now. And now I'm wondering, if they do, let's say a month from now, she ends up back in action and wants to enroll again, are we gonna have a problem with them?
I don't know, but I bet you'll help desk me if you do. But here's the good thing is that, you know, it's okay to recommend to do that code 81. Should have never been enrolled.
Yeah, I think,
I'm just saying when you do the withdrawal code, we can find the kids when you're re-enrolling them. When you expunge them, it's not so pretty. It's just not so pretty. So it's something that we're definitely going to try to get away from, the expunging. You know, are there times that you do it? Yes. When you're still in the 25-26, you've already done your initialization and now the kid withdrew in March, you go and expunge them from the next school year because you're not doing anything with them. You got a withdrawal date over here. You're good. That's an expunging. But once secretaries are back, I don't think so. Now, will it work if you haven't done any EMIS submissions? Yeah, but do you tell them when you're doing your EMIS submissions, hey, anything that you put in, I've submitted. So if you've done something in the last week, it's going to be reported. So I would stay away from it, to be honest with you, if you can. Oh, and then it does go into students reported in error, a kid that you think's coming, then doesn't come. So on the next page, you can see, oops, I went way past. Students reported an error. And you can see this too. If you go to the middle of the page, oh wait, I said if they do at 81, it will not let you put them in the same school year. If you do the FX, which is an example of it below, add student record in error, reported in error, and you can do a a no-show on the same date you put them in to the same date that you take them out. And I'm going to show you that on here. Oops. So I'm going to look for another kid.
So preschool told me I to enroll someone. They, unfortunately, I didn't give you one, is that okay?
It tells you up at the beginning, a student reported an error, FS record should be reported. A student has previously been reported error for the current school year. Reporting a student with record type equivalent and reporting, it's just like an 81 without using the 81 code. So again, the 81 code works and you're only going to run into errors if you try to put them in the same school year. So if I go into this Kathy and I want to say, oh geez, I reported this student in error, and I go to EMIS, maintenance, and it's going to tell me I can go to student reported in error, FX record right there. Oops, I have to be at the district level. Let's take it a minute to move. And I can add the record right here. I use the state ID number, and I'm going to be able to do that, to re-enroll that student later if needed. So I think that EMIS maintenance is I don't remember all of this. I have to tell you, from 2 years ago, I don't remember all of this stuff. I don't remember anybody telling me that I should do this instead of this. But I would say that these are a couple things that we should definitely be looking at. Student reported an error, a withdrawal not processed properly instead of, I think those are things we just need to look at now. But this, and it's not any more of a step than how we would withdraw them anyway. So it goes on and it kind of shows you just add the record, and it's just like a code 81 without doing an 81 when you're having trouble to re-enroll them later if they come back. We're going to talk a little bit about gifted records because that is always fun and entertaining. This is also a district decision. However you run your gifted department, if you have a gifted department, if you offer gifted services, if you don't offer gifted services. So this is really based on your district. So sometimes people might send a help desk ticket. Those can't be answered. It can be answered on if you have a program, how your people want it coded. I can tell you if you have errors, what you might be doing wrong. But this gifted record, this is big time now. So now superintendents and principals are watching this on the report card. And so how we talked about making sure we're doing the acceleration records right? Those acceleration records affect the gifted report card. So that's why we talk about this. So updating student gifted records. And a lot of times people don't do these. We never used to do them till April, to be honest. We never did gifted till like April. Well, they're taking a snapshot of gifted in the first window now, which they never used to do. Will it affect your funding? No, it will not. But it does give you a chance to take a look and get things. So I always tell the gifted people that I want the information before Christmas break, because a lot of us work Christmas break and nobody's there. And so we can work on things that take some time. And this is one of them that may take some time. Now, how your district does it, again, depends. So you can see EMIS gifted data and gifted summary displays gifted data for each student. So you can run the report right now. Probably isn't a good time until you're sure your gifted data is been inputted. The gifted record is used for reporting screening, assessed, identified, and served. So kids may have been ID'd, they're not served. They may be ID'd and served. That could be. That's how we have to code this based on the information that your district puts in. And I know at some districts, the EMIS person does put this in. At other districts, the gifted person doesn't want that EMIS person to do it. They want to make sure that it is properly done. So for instance, at Chippewa, I sat with the gifted person last year and we did it together so that she was comfortable and I was comfortable. At Northwestern, I do the exact same thing. We process all the gifted data And then I want to know how to update all the gifted kids that haven't been ID'd. And so they sat with that. You have to remember your juniors that take the ACT now qualify under that as gifted records. And so you can put them in based on what day they all take that test, that they've all been screened that day. So if you turn to the next page, 52, it goes into the screenshots, and we'll talk about those. So you can see run gifted missing report. Well, most of you will be missing. Most of you are gifted right now because most of us haven't done this process. So we're going to skip over that first one, but you can run that at any time. For any student found to have a missing record, it's going to tell you to run a mass update. Now, the thing about running the mass updates is they can be ran at any time. But once you start putting gifted records in, you do not want to overwrite what you have already put in. So you want to be careful about the mass updates. So you can see that you can go into mass update and you can see where it says overwrite or not. You can do, for any grade level, you can do a gifted rule and just click, don't click overwrite, just don't touch that. Manually, you see the next thing, this is how you manually do it. And we do a lot of that. Does anybody do their own gifted inputs in here? You do? Okay, so you understand this process. Some do, some don't. I usually try to do the memberships in bulk, but the rest of it, I like to look student by student because I don't want to mess up the gifted report card. And I think we're finding, the other thing you find on the gifted report card is if you don't have enough kids in that cohort, if, 6 kids have been ID'd out of all of your gifted kids in science, you might not get that bump. Where if you have ID'd 9 kids out of all the kids, you might get that bump. We found that in some of the districts that you also have to say, okay, well, no, you wouldn't get it because of the number of kids. At some point it rules out, you don't have enough kids identified in that area. So,
Brenda, for those who want to point your gifted recording EMIS videos.
Yes.
We did the training 15th of September, so it's fresh. Make sure you're.
And every gifted person should be watching that video or coming to that training. The training is amazing and it just covers everything and how you want to report it. And the good part about that is that if you know you report it right, you know that report card is right, good or bad. It is again based on how your district is serving and reporting. So a lot of districts say, oh my gosh, we got such a low score here. Well, you may only be serving, 1/4 of the kids that are ID'd. So those things all come into play, but your gifted person would know that and the expectation of it. They also would know what they might have missed, whereas an EMIS person is going to report exactly what's given to them. And that's it. So remember, you're kind of the middleman between a lot of different departments, but you want to guide, but you also want to make sure that they understand their piece of that. Does that make sense? All righty, page 53, special education reporting. Well, this is a great time to talk about this since we are in the midst of federal funding. So our special ed reporting at this point becomes extremely important and extremely timely right now. So what you can see is that the example is to search special education verification detail report in an ad hocs. Displays students, IEPs, and ETRs. Now, would an EMIS person run this? Maybe if your special ed person asked you to, but your special ed person should probably know about the reports and ad hocs that help guide them a little bit. Although most of them use same goal and use the reports in same goal. So this would be just an extra step for them. But for us, we could look at it if we really want to see what's happening in special education. We also have to know that when you're getting special education errors, those have to be turned in to your special education person. I'm going to look at, I'm going to go to Northwestern. Because again, we can't look at EMIS R reports in our test district. Oh, I did that again. But I want to show you the important reports to share to your special education people. Questionable whether I put my password in right. Oh, okay. So when I go here and I've done my S collection and most of my stuff's clean and I've looked at that first run of special education errors in student information, when I go into my S collection, I'm also going to have level 2, or I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I'm also going to have level 1 errors, and I can see that I've got 2 special education errors here. I'm going to look at those because, okay, we've got our special education errors in our student information. Now we've moved on to level 1 errors in EMIS-R. So before I've even submitted, I'm going to take a look at those level 1 errors. And I'm going to see if those can't be cleaned up. And I think they're just date errors that I need to send those to the special ed director. And I need to say, hey, I'm getting these errors. Is something coded wrong in same goal? When I did the transfer, it's picking something up here. So I would question that there first. Now, once I've done that and hopefully get it cleaned up, and remember, it has to be cleaned up in student information, resent over, and then prepared again, and hopefully those errors go away. But then I have a great opportunity to go to my level 2 errors, and I can look at my special ed errors, which is your federal funding right now. And if I go down to federal child count detail, I can click on this. I can see I've got informational, I've got fatal, and I would want to send this report to my special ed director. I would say all my first 190, whatever, are all informational. Those all look good. But then I've got some warnings. What are those warnings? Are they important? Some of them are residents attending out or kids coming in open enrolled, and they're going back to their district. They're not going to count in your district. And those are usually your warnings. Are those kids honestly coded right? So these kids are open enrolled, they're attending in. We also used to have a John Peterson scholarship. Those kids went from John Peterson scholarship to open enrolled. So those are warnings. The system just wants me to check and say, are you sure these kids are open enrolled? Because if they're not, and I might go in and check those, what's their address? I also see one of my 2, my LREs where it needs that 270. So I would say, oh, I gotta find out about this kid. They need a 270. Then my fatals, which are no IEP reported for the October 31st date. There's your warnings and your criticals and your fatals. You should take those, send those to your special ed person, and have them investigate those and see if they're coded properly, if something was missed. Now, the other thing that comes up on that October 31st is that kids that have an IEP due, like that very last week, they come up then. So it's a great heads up for your special ed director to say, hey, that comes due October 30th. We want to make sure that gets in. Or I have a couple that are due October 31st. Hey, we need to get that in for federal child count. So these are reports. And I want you guys to remember, like all your reports over here probably should be shared with somebody. Probably should be shared with someone. And you and your district may know who that is. Now, will some people ignore EMIS reports when you send them out? I already know what you guys are going to say because you all start laughing. I understand that. But here's the thing. As an EMIS coordinator, protect yourself in doing this and sending it to the proper department, and with something that says, I think this is something that, this needs reviewed by your department. If there's any corrections that need made, please make those corrections, let me know. It's the same thing with the L collection, even though we're not doing L collection today. When you're doing those staff, it has years of service, it has their license types. You don't get any errors on that. But I was at a district that got 0 errors on that. And the superintendent had a doctorate. He was coded as having a master's. 2 of their principals were coded incorrectly. I would not have caught it. The superintendent caught it because it was on the report card. How many people have masters? How many people has doctorate? All that's on your report card. And he said, well, that's not right. He says, what's going on with this? And I had sent it, thank heavens, to our personnel department. But had I not sent it to them, he would have said, why didn't you send it to them? And so I think when you're looking at these reports, and as you look down at it, you can see CCP, you can see, let's see here, what else? Your federal child count, FTE detail even. I mean, all of these things need looked at, not just by you necessarily. I can see that I did clearly not uploaded reading diagnostic because I'm going to just be honest with you guys. I struggle with that thing. So I'm handling it different this year. I'm sending the templates to the teachers that give the diagnostics, having them do that because they were sending me spreadsheets and I was uploading, I would cut and paste. And then we found out that that doesn't always cut and paste properly. And so we had about 20, 30 errors last year and we got them cleaned up. But so I decided to do it a little bit different this year because should I be cutting and pasting data that's super important to the district? Probably not. So just another heads up.
And you guys might do the same thing, but it's very helpful for us. So we have 741 students in the federal child count.
Is that
So a few more than Northwestern.
right?
So what I do every year is I make a Google sheet. So that report is in the Google sheet. I share it with the entire department, and then I can, in the cell, add a comment or a task, which I just really like Google, but then they get an email right away. So like you could send them that report and they're gonna look at that and then not look at it. But I feel like if you have a Google document that you can share with them and then comment, like this kid's IEP was done over the summer, an IEP question mark. So then I put a task and then they respond usually within a day.
I like that. I don't know. Does everybody like Google Docs here? I'm not going to say anything because I struggle with Google Docs. Only because it's live. Because it's live, Lori. But it makes sense to be live. So in this case, that makes sense to be live. But when you're looking at these things, you know how you always question yourself, am I supposed to be doing something with this? What department would that go to if I had a question? I mean, give that thought process because you are not the owner of everything. And you get a lot of reports from ODE that you need to share as an EMIS coordinator. You need to share those. And so I'm just kind of saying that look at this stuff and make sure that you're not keeping it to yourself, that you're sharing it with the proper, you will learn from those people too. Because when they come back and say, I don't know what you're talking about with this report, you'll have an opportunity then to talk to it. Like a lot of times, if I don't get something within, a response within like 2 weeks, I'm going to resend it. And sometimes then I'm going to copy, like one of the bosses on it, just because I find that as an EMIS coordinator, that helps a little bit. That's all. No other reason at all. So our special education reporting is extremely important. And again, that transfer from same goal into EMIS or into student information keeps you out of the middle again. I think at Worcester, they have a secretary that does that transfer. Some districts don't. Some of the actual special ed administrators do that transfer themselves. Some don't trust that transfer. In Chippewa, they want me to do that transfer. I don't mind doing that transfer as long as they know I'm just transferring what's in there. That's all I'm doing. So, but then you come to that federal child count, you're like, hey, or your FTE detail, when you see your special ed kids have no special ed funding, what's going on there? So that's just a heads up. So student special education reporting. Any other questions on that? Oh, just one more thing. Remember, federal child count has a lot to do with how you reported a student at the end of the school year to how you bring them forward. So if you miss IEPs in May, you are out of compliance. And you put them in August, you're out of compliance because you have something in there that you did not report at the end of the school year that has the end of the school year date. And now you're trying to report it at the beginning of the school year. You're out of compliance. Usually a code 9 will at least get your state funding moving. It will most likely block you out of federal funding. So, and a lot of this you have no control over because you're waiting on other districts. it could be preschool. It could be a lot of things that just got missed in the middle of the end of the school year activities. So that's just a heads up on those. So it does say here on page 55, which kind of explains it a little bit better. I gotta get to 55. Important, make sure all events that take place on or before 6/30 of 26, because that's year we're in, are entered in student information and reported in the S collection. So that, or these students will show up on the FTE adjustment report. You will not receive special ed weighted funding for these students. So that kind of explains a few of our questions throughout this last month, so everybody knows. All right. Oh, the other thing is, remember, ESCs do not report special education. You do for your district. So that just kind of gives you a little bit there. Okay, we're gonna go. Oh, yes.
So we noticed that there's been an issue, with transfers coming into, your districts. One, this has been a couple issues, is several kids are coming in with an IEP or an ETR that has already been transferred to one district. And then now they're coming to your district. So in that case, they do have to create that shell document if you are doing the import. So I'm talking if you're doing the import, if you're doing the email entry, you can do what you've done in the past. They would have to create that shell document in order to get your TIEP date. They would know how to do that, but when there's already a transfer in there from a different district and then coming to you, the transfer doesn't pull in the extract. The other thing that we noticed is that if, so Johnny's coming to my school and he transfers to Rebecca's school, the IEP was amended, the amendment shows on the IEP, but the amendment event does not transfer. Okay, this has been a big problem for the ESC preschool because they're writing the amendments. But then when they transfer them back to the home districts, that amendment event does not populate. So I did discuss that with them, how they can manually create that event so you guys can do the transfer if you're the person doing the transfer. So if you have any questions or issues, just let me know. I know I've worked with Amanda quite a bit with some of these issues, and a couple other districts. So feel free to reach out. But yeah, it's something in the system. It's nothing I can change. I can just kind of find workarounds to make them work because their response to me is something really short and then they say best.
The other thing to keep in mind is that your special ed department's going to get a special ed profile. So you sharing all of these things gives them a heads up before they get that special ed profile. And they have other things that might be out of compliance there. So I think in the past, I've almost always had someone that said, hey, here's the profile. Can you explain number 5 to me? And I'm always like, whoa, I don't know. Let me look at it. So
Yeah, one other thing, double check because we have noticed, some students, what was the issue? The student was open enrolled and then actually registered in the district. I want to say like mid-August, but before school started. But because there was a document already in the system, it same will automatically transfer the effective start date as September 1st of 2025. So then the export was not pulling that student because the effective start date was prior to their enrollment date. So yeah, so again, it's a team effort, but the EMIS person reached out to me, why isn't this importing? And that was the reason. So in that case, that does have to be a manual entry because I can't change the software.
and remember, they're not getting these reports. If you don't share them, they're not getting them. And so that's kind of where you guys come into play is like, don't carry the burden, but share it so that you can get the answers that you need. We're going to go through a few pages here and I'm going to just very quickly touch on them They are not things that I want you guys to worry about because they are not done right away. And so we don't want people to get confused and think they've got to do some things that are not done until the mid or final. So you can see task 34 that happens to be a task that can be done throughout the year. And this is the FE graduation required record. So if they're going to waive the requirements, they can do that at any point. They'll do that in same goal. That's also another transfer that they don't have to manually do. They can do that as a transfer too. But this would be something that a lot of times we would never do till the very end of the school year. Because if you put the waiver in and then you decide, well, we're going to go ahead and test that student, you have the waiver in there. And then if they pass, you don't need the waiver. So that's just kind of a heads up on page 56 and 57. And again, that will be in same goal if your district is doing, if you're doing the transfer. Yes.
If not, it'll jumble it up with junk data.
Yeah, I forgot to say that. Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, you do not need that for anybody but the high school. So we talked a little bit about verifying special ed records. And again, that's in that very first check. And I do that before I submit my S data, just to give my special ed people just one more chance to clean things up. Those first level reports. That's on task 35. So I kind of jumped ahead on that just a little bit because I'm going to go back to the test district. And just as a reminder, if I go to EMIS and I go to S, and then I just hit verify, then I'm going to go down and I'm going to look again at those special ed records before I do my transfer. And it's just going to give me, like I said, that's the first opportunity for those first errors. We had a question, I don't know if anybody has had any of these weird situations where this year we have a couple kids that were out of compliance, but they were really out of compliance last year, but I got no report, no error. Has anybody had any of that come up? I just had it with 2 kids. Okay, I just wondered. Okay, well, it was a unique situation. I don't know why. I guess now that means I have to look into it. So again, this is just, you're going to verify your Uncle EMIS, but to verify other stuff in this is always, always, always a good idea. And I remember Jill from West Home saying, hey, I go through all of these things. So she clicks on all this stuff and just takes a look at it. And we had that in one of our work sessions in here, our open labs. And I probably over the years had not taken the time to look at all those things, but I've seen such a benefit in it. I've always looked at special education. I always looked at Uncle EMIS. But to look at all of that stuff, it's just eye opener. That's all. So just an FYI on that. So now when you go to page 60, that's when we get into, we could talk about this stuff, but it is end of the year. And if I was you, I would mark it in your manual. If you printed this manual, that you do not do graduation end of the year updates until end of the year, period. There's nothing that you do now. It's the same thing with page 61, page 62, page 63, and we will go over all of these at the time. We have these trainings already set up, but to focus on these things now would make 0 sense. And are you going to remember later in the year that you've got to run a lot of programs? It's the same thing. 64. You not be doing that stuff now. That will cause a lot of problems. Clear through 66. Those are things you are not touching right now. I would mark that in your manual. Like for me, I use this manual almost every week. I will go through this and make sure that while I was setting in training, did I remember to do this? I will mark my manual when I've done things. I will put in my manual, I need to run this, I need to check this, just as heads up. But those are pages that you're going to mark, do not touch until the end of the school year. Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Anything that's not registered, part 2 is scheduled for May 6th. So it is on the events calendar if you want to register for part 2, where we will cover those.
And the cool part I'm going to add for that is, like Shelley and I talked about this. We wanted to do part 2 before everybody left for summer. Because a lot of this stuff that we just went through, you need to be sitting with someone at the high school to do. Some high schools do it themselves. I get a little nervous. And so I like to sit with them and just make sure that we're all on the same page. But we'll talk about that when the time comes. So we're going to go clear to page 67. Everybody with me? And you're going to end up at the district and building records. Okay, and this page is very easy to understand. Update district and building records, DN attributes. So again, when you're going in to do this, you're going into EMIS, you're going into your maintenance, and you're going to district and building information. Okay? Now we take a look at that if you have your computer there. You're going to see hardware. Don't update that now. That there's going to be an update on that coming out this week, right, Shelley? On the tonight, the 25.1.0, it will be an update. Primary software, you can do your primary software. I'm going to go up further because I'm not up there. So most of it's going to be progress book. I think everybody, your e-finance, but whatever yours may be, those are the things that you can fill in. Primary software is all collections, as you can see. Literacy instruction is all collections. So you need to talk to your literacy coaches. What are they using? And then you need to enter that. And it'll give you, when you hit new there, it'll say, okay, what are you using? There's all your choices. And what grade levels are you using them for? So if you use different literacy instruction for different grade levels, you need to put those in for different grade levels. Now, Janelle, tell me that you are not super happy that you don't have to do the hardware thing anymore.
Yeah. And I know they are updating the literacy, I think they're adding stuff to it.
Oh.
I can tell you, I have it open. I got too many computers going on. I'll find it.
Okay. Are you guys set? You okay? Move on? Oh, okay.
So now I'll look through it and see the long one.
Okay.
Power up literacy is on
All righty. As you go down through there, if you go to page 69, you're going to see student groups, all collections. Again, what's the deadline for your students to be admitted to kindergarten? That's all that goes there. What's your home school count for your district? That's what goes there. As you go down through there, you're going to see some of this stuff you cannot update until the end of the school year. Even though it says all collections, you don't get some of that information from Head Start until actually school is out. You can see amount charged for all day kindergarten for fees. You can see maximum charge for kindergarten for tuition. Some schools still have tuition. I don't know if I don't think any of us have it. Do you have a local wellness? That's in the final collection. Preschool special education agreements. Do you automatically pay that agreement? Or do you wait until the end of the school year, get a bill from Tri-County and do it then? Most people like to see their roster and who they're getting charged from for Tri-County, and then they pay that through their treasurer's office. But if you sign here that they're going to go ahead and pay that bill automatically, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that from them.
Everybody
do the
should be
first
a
one,
no.
Then they're going to automatically get that bill. It should be a no.
Yep.
Is that what you said, Tracy?
Yes, everybody's
Years ago,
no.
they used to
it.
not. Everybody's a no now.
25 years
Heard
ago,
from the
it was
boss,
yes.
right there.
Now it's no.
Yes, that's okay. So now she's talking my language. Thanks, Tracy.
Ah, you're welcome.
You can also see the eye exams. Oh, eye exams, final collection. Don't do anything with SOES. College credit plus, final collection. Assessment, if you know when your assessments are, you put those in, it's all collections. And then the rest is final collection, because that's what you do, that's what you're gonna save for later, when you get all that stuff from the nurse in each of your buildings. So that takes us clear through to, oh, let me find it. Which is also there. So when you go to your district, you've got your district information, which we just went through. If you go to your building, you have to put your buildings in. So you need to, if you hit add new, most of your buildings will come up. And you know that you're going to do all of your PE stuff at the end of the year. And are you participating in any of the other things? And your positive behavior also goes in there. And most of those are all, oops, I didn't save it. Okay.
West Tom will have a new building next year. We will have a new building IRN. They're gonna close all of their elementary, create a new one. They're not maintaining like I know some of you have. Yeah.
So most of this stuff will be going over in the May training. So you know who to contact in your district to get some of this information. Because you will not know how much they're getting charged for CCP courses that they're either failed or did not get out of soon enough that the student's going to be reported for. You will not know about how many eye exams were done all year. You will not know about how many diabetics and all those things are until the end of the school year. So that's why we moved that to the May collection. So we're going to go to page 74, membership and program reporting. Verify and update membership codes with staff, program providers. Now, usually each building has someone that does that, has all of their athletic memberships, their club memberships, all of those things. Again, things that you would not have access to unless somebody gave you a printout of who was doing those things. And sometimes EMIS people do it. Sometimes building secretaries do it, just depends. And so those are all things that would need updated throughout the school year, because right now you're in fall sports. So all the athletic department would be doing all the fall sports codes. What kind of clubs are you offering? Who's in the National Honor Society? Who's in the FFA? All of those things can be done. They can be done throughout the year, but getting the things done in the season that they actually exist makes everybody's life a lot easier. And it goes on to tell you task 41, which is updating student membership programs. So you're going to see some things in there that we've already talked about. High dosage tutoring we talked about. So program codes are reportable at various times throughout the school year. You can see the program code scheduler to find out which ones go. Some are actually even reported in just G. So you also have your pre-kindergarten experience. That's something that everybody should be working on now if they haven't started. And sometimes the elementary secretaries or the preschool secretaries, they give them that information and the elementary secretaries put that in. Sometimes, I guess I should say that that information is gathered in final forms if the parent fills it out. You can always run a final forms report and fill that information out. But that again would be, you do it by bulk student if they're all kind of the same, or you'd have to do it student by student that's in kindergarten. And that's on page 75. It also on 75 will tell you which ones were added, which ones were removed, which if you looked at the removed, it's a long list this year. And you can see how you would edit memberships, all other program codes. You have your reading improvement monitoring plan, which we've already talked about. Importing program codes. And I don't know how many people do this, but we talked about this earlier, how easy that is to go into the EMIS data map export and pick your dyslexia tier 2 statuses, which are now in data map, and your program codes. Any questions on that? We did cover that earlier. When you move on, you're going to see page 78. Guess what? That we'll do at the end of the year. But I do want to say one thing about this. You know, your guidance offices and principals, they need to be giving the students all of the seals, not just the minimum that they need. Because of the CCMWR, if they qualify for a seal, it's super important that they get that seal and not that they just get these 2 seals when they've qualified for 4 seals. I will tell you that, and we will, I mean, hopefully they're getting that training too, but we have found that people have work-based hours, but then they don't have that college and career readiness seal. And that's one of the easiest seals to get for a student. So you don't get that bonus in the CCMRW because you did not get the hours and the seal. So that's just a heads up, because we've gotten a lot of questions from principals. Well, how come I have these 3 kids that I didn't get my bonus points for? And they can only get 1 bonus point per student. So if that's the only place they're getting it, it means a lot to them. So I'm going to skip. I'm done. I'm off that one. Sorry. Okay. So task 42, page 81. Verify student memberships. You can run a report to verify student memberships. And most of the reports are in the Analytics Hub. Again, if you ever get time to go into the Analytics Hub and check out all the reports there, it's amazing. It's amazing to look at. It's amazing. Run MEM to verify student memberships. You can run that anytime. Verify the student memberships. Are there any causing you any problems? Check it out. That's what we do. We've had a lot of questions on task 44, which is 83, discipline, data and reporting discipline. So discipline errors can be deleted, but they don't go away. If somebody puts something in they shouldn't have put in, they don't go away. So if somebody does something over the summer, it's not during the calendar school year, it's going to throw an error. And so a principal might say, well, I need that to be logged there. Well, it won't go anywhere. It's just you can remove it, delete it, but it's still going to stay there. So you're going to be able to see it. But there may be a better way to log that than to cause a discipline error. And that's just some of the stuff. Like I've had people put in an expulsion and then it wasn't really an expulsion. I said, oh, it should be simple. Just delete it. You can still kind of see it, but it is deleted. So just kind of keep that in mind with discipline reporting. It just hangs out somewhere else, but it is not reported to the Ohio Department of Education. And I think that's the important thing. It's not reported there. It goes into talking about victims and those kind of things. That's up to the person that's doing your discipline reporting. The detail, some of it is required, some of it isn't. Does everybody use the discipline module in student information? Okay. I recommend. Oh, good, because the recommendation is like, remember, if it's not in student information and they're using a spreadsheet to document discipline, it's not going to the Ohio Department of Education. It's in their spreadsheet. It's not moving from that spreadsheet. Okay. And it goes on even further into detail for all of your discipline reporting. And this isn't a bad thing to share with the people that do discipline in your district. On page 86, you have attendance reporting. And again, you can run attendance reports. I think most districts are set up on the warning letters and the red flags and all that kind of stuff, kind of to keep track of what's happening. And you can look at those things. Attendance isn't something that you have to keep track of, but there is attendance hour summary. And sometimes EMIS people get those questions of like, why is this not coming up or that not coming up? And remember how we talked, if you have a student that's attending 2 different buildings, might not trigger when it should trigger that they've been absent because you got 75% here, 25 here. It's only going to count 75% and 25%. It's all based on hours. So is it going to trigger that? And then of course you see the update, in the middle of the update on page 46, and this is really more end of the year too. Although attendance is sent in, it says EMIS change 2667 adds a student detailed attendance FM record. Oh, that's what this is. So you know how they collect it under the attendance tab? They're thinking about putting it somewhere else, which is probably under the attendance tab. They may just be calling it the FM tab instead of what they call it now. So, and that is, I think it's, look up a student here and see what that is. Sorry, there's such a lag here when we're looking up students. It seems maybe because everybody's on. Oh, you do? Oh, it's me. So you can see it's the FS tab now. So that just may change the name or whatever. And that's down the road. So, oh, and it has the OTC. Has that affected anybody in here yet? The extra hours that they can get for Ohio Technical Center? Okay, okay. Okay, I just want to make sure that hasn't affected anyone. So that'll be something new down the road. So again, as you read through these pages, 88, 89, I'm not going to read them all to you, but remember your percent of time for CCP students matters. You know, are they attending with you? How much time are they spending with you? How much time are they attending the CCP? What's even crazier is when you have a student that is taking a class with you, taking classes at the JVS, and then taking classes CCP. So the biggest question is always, who are they taking those CCP classes with? Are you responsible for the payment or is the district responsible for the payment? Whoever they're taking those classes with is who's responsible for the payment. And a lot of times you'll hear from the JVSs because they're like, hey, you guys, they're billing me instead of you. Or you'll be calling them and saying, hey, they're billing us instead of you. It's just a teamwork effort there. That's all that is, just to make sure the right district is paying. I mean, the Career Center years ago didn't offer CCP classes. They're offering as many as, you know, the high schools are now. So it's a mixed bag. So you just have to work with your career centers to make sure that you've coded all those kids right. That's all. That's all. Does anybody have satellite students? Doesn't somebody have satellite students? You do. Okay. So again, there is a thing on satellite students here. Now it includes a satellite student flag. So that's kind of nice that it includes that. All righty, let's go back. So task 47, page number 91. So it's kind of funny. I'm just going to tell you guys how I am because most of you know me pretty well. So, you know, I'd set through these trainings and then, you know, either the person would read it to me or they wouldn't read it to me. And then something happened a couple years ago and someone said, well, it's in the instructions, you know, and I think they might have said, I didn't think we needed to read those to you. And so I started reading the instructions, like really reading them. So like when you have a question about attendance, the instructions are amazing in these manuals. If we read every page to you, we'd be in here for, you know, the day. And a lot of the pages don't pertain to everyone in the room, or no one has any problems with certain things. And so we wait for that help desk ticket to address that problem. And sometimes we have to go back to this manual because when we skipped it over, we may not have read it in depth either. And so I do say, like, when you have time that you do, when you're doing attendance, that you're like, I turn to this page when I'm doing attendance issues and I go through these pages when I think I can't figure something out, or I just do a help desk ticket. I mean, so either way works just fine. And the only way for us to learn is for you guys to do help desk tickets because we don't know that everybody has a problem. So like on Monday, when due was down, like I was at another district, so I thought it was me. And so if Lori wouldn't have said, hey, Brenda, are you having any trouble getting into due? I was like, I am. And so, do you know what I mean? So, but otherwise, I wouldn't know that. I would just think it was just me. I'm having trouble. I'm in another district. You know, the connection's not working right. So when you have those things, if you guys could throw us a help desk ticket, like I know how you feel. Like I always think it's me. But if you throw those help desk tickets out, we're not going to say, oh my heavens, here comes another one. That is not how it's going to happen. I promise you it's not. I am telling you, I was the person that secured jobs here on my help desk tickets alone. I don't know whose I secured, but I secured because I needed to know everything and I needed to know a reason for everything. So don't think that we don't understand that. We do. The people here want that same, they want to solve it the same exact way. So I want to tell you guys that for sure. Anyway, manually entering attendance, again, that's at the end of the year. Some people do leap and stuff like that. That's fine if they get those monthly reports. Who does it in the district? You know, usually is the building secretary that's at where the student would be attending if they are attending. So that's task 47. And those, it tells you who are you going to repay, who are you going to put in? Your MRD, your DD students, your non-public, your LEAP, those kind of kids that you are still paying for. You need to put their attendance in the other entity's attendance. But we're not going to go into that because again, that's at the end of the school year. Now, if you printed your manual out 9/8 or before, it changed page 92. 48, it changed that. And so I want you guys, I don't know if anybody did it or if you did it after 9/11. You're only talking a few days, like 3 days. So my first one I printed was 9/8. And then when I was studying it, I noticed that on 9/11, a revision had come out. And so on page 92 is part of that revision. So if you had it last year, and it's the truancy piece. Oops, I skipped it. Sorry. So it's the truancy and chronic absenteeism. So you're going to see on there absent threshold details, absent threshold reports. You have access to all of those things. So do your buildings. So you need, if they don't understand that piece, you need to let them know. Effective FY26, the student truancy FT record is no longer reported to the EMIS due to EMIS change 26-119. Updates to the absent intervention. Now, this attendance support and all of these things, it's scary that they're not tracking some of this anymore because the courts are still involved. And so you're going to want to make sure that you follow all of the new laws on the attendance reporting. And I think in September, we started getting some questions on that because it had not been updated in EMIS or in student information. Has that update taken place or is that 26-1 or 25-1?
Yeah, I don't think it's
Yeah.
released. I think it's the next one.
So it's not released yet, but it still doesn't mean that your attendance people don't have to follow the rules. They still have to follow the rules, even though student information hasn't been updated yet. I just want to bring that up, okay?
And can I bring up something real quick that
Yes.
Reports are great. Your districts are using them. We know because at the beginning of the year, we get tickets. They're like, you know, middle school is not showing up or the high school is not showing up, whatever it might be. The analytic hub reports will populate the filter criteria based on if the criteria has been met. So for example, if nobody has reached the absence threshold at the middle school is not going to be an option for the drop down. So then they think they don't have access to the middle school building, but it's because nobody's met that threshold.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay. Moving on, on page 94, majority of attendance. Again, that's at the end of the school year. Why is it at the end of the school year? It still takes the first full week of October and your last day testing, your state testing, to decide the majority of attendance IRN. So a lot of people will say, yeah, they'll be getting those reports in February. Well, testing isn't over, so your majority of attendance IRN is not going to update until after all testing has been, state testing has been complete. So all the students that were here the first full week of October through the last day of testing for your district will now be involved in your majority of attendance IRN. I just want to let you know that those reports will come out before they're ready. Okay? Don't panic. I got no students reporting to me. None have my IRN. They will not until we finish reporting. If you go on page 95 is still exactly the same thing. 96, non-graduate course summary. Normally we do that at the end of the school year. It is not reportable until then. And you know how you see that when you're doing your final reporting. As we move on, 97, 98, count of graduation credits and entry. We'll be doing that in May again. And then on page EMIS coordinators.
This year,
I don't know if we do, but
no, newer.
right. Okay. So, I know you guys say, you've said this is going to be my third or fourth time in this training. Everything starts in student information. That's your first line. Second line is EMIS-R. Third, so you have to submit from student information to EMIS-R, from EMIS-R to ODE. That's the only way your information is going to get moving. If you don't fix it in student information, you're going to get the same result in ODEX, same result in EMIS-R. Not going to change everything. So if you have any questions on that, all your data submissions, when we're on page 99 out of 101, they're not going to go anywhere unless you follow that process, period. And again, it tells you, like, you can even look at what you've run and you can see, hey, I haven't run this or I've run that. And so it gives you that EMIS check when you're doing this. Now, when we go to task 53, this is what we're all about today. And that is the period S transfer. We've talked about how we do it. One big question is, do I have to transfer everything? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I can only remember this from every training I've ever been in. Do not pick and choose. You must transfer it all. And it takes it all. It only takes what it needs. And it sends it over there. And so everything is perfect. So 100 out of 101 and on, you're going to, again, take that S collection and you're going to move it right on into the data collector. The data collector is where you're going to go into ODEX and you're going to get to see all your work completed. So when you have your ODEX errors, you should be able to watch your ODEX errors go down as each of your submissions. When you come in September and you start worrying about all your ODEX errors, you will probably drive yourself crazy. You need to wait. You got to wait for everybody to get on and everybody to do the transfers because you're waiting for other people. You're waiting for them to clean up their mistakes. And, not everybody does. The secretaries are crazy. Like, they're still withdrawing kids in August and September. They're still putting kids in. That stuff's still happening. And so our patience there has to be that we know that we cannot just be so focused on those errors. We have to know that every time we look, probably a little bit of them are going to go away. Now we're in October. Now it's time to say, my ODEX errors are now serious. Did somebody not do their open enrollment? Are they not reporting kids? Were you reporting the wrong percentages? What's going on? But now you have a reasonable amount of errors that you can look at. And I always look at all the conflicts and clean up. And again, you got them in ODEX, but you got to go back to student information to clean them up. And then you got to start the process all over again. I want to thank everybody for their patience in me getting through my second training